With us now is the Liberal candidate for the riding of Oakville, Ontario, Anita Anand. Tonight she joins us, of course, in her capacity as Minister of Industry to respond to the imposition of auto tariffs and talk about the Canadian response. Hi, Minister. Good to have you here. Thank you very much for making the time.
Hi, Vashi. Good to see you.
I'm going to pick up exactly where Howard Lutnick left off, because in that interview, he basically intimated that Trump doesn't care about literally the worst day in the markets since 2020. If that doesn't punch through to the president, in your estimation, what, if anything, will?
Well, the markets lost $2.8 trillion, Vashi, and that in and of itself is a sign that the announcements from the White House yesterday are not only disruptive of the American, Canadian, and global economies, but that the devastation that these tariffs are going to occasion will continue in the long term, if not removed. So Canada's response to hit back with 25% tariffs on American-made vehicles that are not CUSMA compliant is a strong and proportionate response. And at the same time, we're going to put in place a framework. We call this a remission framework to ensure that auto producers can have relief as long as they maintain production and investment in our country. I've been on the phone most of the day with the auto sector, the auto companies, as well as labor, to ensure that they know that our government is there to support them every step of the way.
After those conversations, is it your view that an incentive structure is necessary to get them to stay in Canada? And I ask against, of course, the backdrop that Donald Trump has been explicit in trying to justify these tariffs by saying that he wants to move the sector from Canada and other countries back to the United States. Do you have any assurances that those companies are not going to pick up and leave?
Every one of the auto manufacturers has indicated to me that they do intend to stay in Canada, they do intend to produce in Canada, and that they want to work with the government of Canada to ensure that that continues to be possible. We have agreements in place with the auto manufacturers. That's our strategic investment fund, and we will continue to ensure that we come forward to maintain a healthy and vibrant auto manufacturing sector.
Is it your view, based on those conversations, that the structure, for example, that you just referenced, that the Prime Minister announced today, to sort of say, hey, you know, these counter tariffs won't necessarily apply to you if you maintain your operations in Canada? Do you think that's necessary to keep them there, or will they by their own volition? Like when they told you they'll stay, was it because they want to and they believe there's a business case to, or will the government have to intervene in some capacity to ensure that business case exists?
Well, there is no doubt that this is a volatile time, and yesterday was one of the most volatile moments in Canadian economic history that we have seen. Therefore, today's conversations are very much about ensuring that the auto manufacturers know that the Canadian government will be there for them to continue to develop, manufacture, and invest in Canada. And in fact, the framework, this remission framework that we will put in place, is aimed not only at the short term, but long-term retention of auto manufacturing in our country. So it's a very serious approach that we are taking as a government, not only 25% tariffs on the auto sector for U.S.-made cars, but also this back-end remission framework that gives the auto manufacturing industry some assurance that the government of Canada will be there for them.
Can you detail, because I only understand, I guess, so much as the Prime Minister outlined today and some of the background details we got about the remission structure. Like, in layman's terms, what is the government prepared to do to keep these companies here? And does it mean that it will cost taxpayers money, essentially? Like, will you have to buttress the industry to keep it here? Will it be through loans? Will it just be through the structure that allows them to escape counter tariffs or the imposition of counter tariffs if they stay manufacturing here? Can you provide some specifics on that?
We will be able to provide specifics in short order. Those specifics are being ironed out now. And part of the reason I was on the phone with the auto companies was to obtain their feedback. we have a very close relationship here with not only industry, but labor and the broader parts sector. And it is an all hands on deck moment to make sure we're doing what is necessary for the Canadian economy. And so the idea of the remission framework is certainly to support the industry. There are various options on the table to do that. And once those are ironed out, I will come back and have a conversation about them.
I appreciate that. In principle, Minister, as the minister who does oversee this, do you foresee it being through loans or foresee it, through the way that the government supported a lot of business during COVID, which is money that ultimately didn't end up being recouped?
Loans are not primarily on the table right now, but I, again, don't want to go too far without ironing out this and obtaining the feedback from industry that is so important to ensure we're rolling out a program that supports them. That framework will be put in place in short order. But I don't want us to forget other industries. Steel, aluminum, those have been hit hard also with Trump tariffs, and our government will continue to ensure we are there for those industries. And as you said, the broader Canadian economy, we have in place $450 million for small businesses across the country should they need further supports. So this is a decision that the White House has made that is affecting all sectors and labor, and we need to do whatever possible to maintain the vibrancy of the Canadian economy through these troubled times. And I was pleased to see Prime Minister Carney do just that in his announcement this morning.
Your government also announced that the revenue from counter tariffs, which it estimates to be in the neighborhood of $8 billion, will go back to the workers in industry. Can you clarify? I couldn't find any detail about through what mechanism or like what exactly does that mean? Is that to buttress EI? Is that another kind of CERB plan in place? Like what is that money going to be used for?
Right now, you're exactly right to mention EI. What we are doing is removing obstacles to obtaining EI and EI top-ups as quickly as possible. And so in the short term, we will be working with internal government partners to support the EI system that may be accessed to a greater degree given what we are seeing in the workforce and potential layoffs there. But in the long term, we remain open to other possibilities to support labor as well as industry. The work that we are doing now is to present short and long-term options. Depending on how long this lasts, we need to be ready. But let's be clear that in the call with President Trump, Prime Minister Carney did agree that once this election is over, they would go back to the table and iron out some of the long-term specifics of not only the economic partnership, but also the defense and security relationship that is so crucial to our country.
Or whomever, I should point out, to be fair, since we're in a campaign, whomever is prime minister after the election, because we don't know the outcome of that. I do want to ask, though, because in his capacity as Prime Minister, Mark Carney today said, detailed basically his view of how the degree to which we have been interdependent with the United States and the degree to which the world really has looked to the United States for economic leadership, particularly in the realm of trade, is over. He said very specifically. He said it's a tragedy and it's a new reality. And he also talked about Canada amplifying trade with looking to other like-minded countries. And it's in that vein that I wanted to ask, I've covered your government for a number of years. I've covered CETA. I've covered the Indo-Pacific strategy, a lot of different efforts to diversify trade that ultimately resulted in the same portion of our goods and services heading to the United States today as did 5 years ago or 10 years ago, give or take a couple of percentage points. 3/4 of what we send, no matter what your government did to try and amplify trade with other countries, still goes to the United States. So what new plan will you put forward to Canadians to do the opposite? And why should Canadians trust that your government can do that when it hasn't been able to over the last decade?
Actually, we are the only G7 country that has a free trade agreement with every other G7 country. So the first step is going to be to leverage each and every one of those trading relationships. The second step is going to look internally and make sure that we are dismantling internal barriers to trade, which could add up to $200 billion to the Canadian economy. So there are steps that we will take immediately as a result of the very devastating announcement relating to tariffs that President Trump has made over the last number of weeks. But make no mistake, this is about reordering trade relationships. This is about developing stronger trading relationships within Canada and with other partners. And that's exactly what this moment requires us to do. Regardless of the decisions that the United States is taking, this moment signifies a time where we need to broaden our trade relationships and leverage our natural resources and critical mineral sectors. Canada has everything that other countries want. Now will be the time to leverage those critical minerals and raw materials in particular, so that the United States and every other country that wants those minerals knows that there will be a price to pay when you want to trade with Canada.
But with great respect, Minister, my question wasn't about how many free trade deals we have. I pointed out that I've covered all of the ones that your government has signed over the last decade. When you raise the issue of leveraging, I think Canadians would wonder, why hasn't it been leveraged before? Like, why does it take this crisis to leverage trade deals that have been in place in some cases for a number of years? And if you couldn't leverage it over the last decade, why should they believe you will going forward?
Well, because they saw that we signed a free trade agreement with the United States in 2017 that Donald Trump himself signed. And we had assurance based on that agreement with the United States that, for example, $150 billion per year for the auto sector could transfer across the Canada-U.S. border. That equation has now changed, and that requires us now to pivot and develop another strategy. And that requires us to have a leader who is serious and capable and experienced, one who has managed financial crises in the past, and one who will carry our country and our country's economy forward during these turbulent times.
All right, Minister, I'll leave it there. I think your mouse is going crazy on the screen. I appreciate you making the time. Thank you.
Thank you.